Welcome to Rising Woman Leaders. I'm your host, Meredith Ram, and I believe the time has come for women to share their gifts, their voice, and their stories. I love seeing women spiritually and financially empowered, thriving in their life's work, and doing what they love every day. I've gathered a community of women living their dreams to tell us their stories and inspire us to step into more courage, self-love, and feminine leadership. If you like this podcast, use the hashtag Rising Woman Leaders. Follow me on Instagram at Meredith Ram and sign up for email updates at risingwomanleaders.com to get all the new and inspiring content. Now get cozy with a journal and a cup of tea. I hope you enjoy today's show. I'm here today with MacKenzie Green. She is an old friend, a very inspiring woman who actually was Miss DC USA in 2010. She also graduated from Columbia Business School soon after that. And she's pioneered many different charitable causes and projects. And I'm just so grateful and excited to have MacKenzie here to share with us. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to start off with just asking you, because this is kind of the news of the day, is Beyonce. And I was watching some videos today, and I always like to check in with people like what on social media to see what they're up to before having these interviews. And I loved seeing that you had some posts about Beyonce, and I just want to hear like how. So she just performed at Coachella. She had a huge tribute to just Black culture and history. And I would love to hear just what that was like for you seeing her and what you are taking away from that.
Definitely. I think it's funny that you said kind of current events, because when you think about all that had happened kind of in the moments prior to, you have two Black men getting arrested at Starbucks for being in the building but not ordering anything. At the same time, you have Nina Simone finally being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And there are days where, with the current events and young Black men getting shot and everything going on, where some days it feels hard to be Black. And then there are moments where a woman stands on a stage in front of hundreds of thousands of people and proceeds to sing the Negro National Anthem, and it just takes your breath away. I mean, I think that performance was wild to me, because and one of my good friends from growing up said the same thing. She said, I have the same feeling about this that I had about Black Panther, which is, I know what's in this. I know how much this means to me. But what are other people hearing and seeing? Because I don't think they understand how big a moment this is, that they're hearing a Nina Simone sample, that she's doing swag surfing, which every HBCU does, that she's doing probably, in my opinion, most Black people's favorite rap song, which is Back That Ass Up. You know, she's doing the Negro National Anthem. She's dancing with Destiny's Child. She's standing up there, you know, in this Nubian goddess looking outfit, all this stuff. And I thought, does she know that other people can see this and not just us? Like, it was wild. It blew my mind.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. And I mean, from my perspective, it's just super inspiring. I imagine it has even like a deeper heart resonance just from your upbringing and your culture and what the things that have impacted you. And yeah, there was just a feeling of like times are changing, and that it's celebratory.
Something my mom, and I hate to jump on you, but it's something my mom said this morning. She said, she watched it. I found like a bootleg version, sent it to her, and she watched it, and she said, I was in awe because I thought of all the artists I grew up with who had to choose between their race or popularity. And she said, and to watch this woman say, I don't care if you all watch this and never buy another album, like this feels right to me. And it was just, it's just crazy in that sense. I think, you know, anybody who's like, oh, it's just Beyonce, don't be dramatic. I'm like, if you understood the nuance of what was in there, you would get why people are weep over Beyonce.
Yes, yes, it's huge moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and I'm just remembering a documentary I saw about, I think it was Whitney Houston when she was first coming on the music scene as a teenager, and all of the people that were in charge of getting her out there to the audiences, it was like they were doing everything they could to gear her towards a white audience. And
Yep.
that, like, she didn't have as much say and of what she wanted to sing and things like that, and growing up. And so yeah, big difference of what we are getting
we've
to
made
see.
leaps and bounds.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that. So MacKenzie, we've known each other since high school.
Yeah.
Where I think we met a chemistry class. And
yeah, I think we did. I think it was like a chemistry class sophomore year or something.
Yeah. And when we were both the new kids in that school, that when I think back, so we were in DC, and I went to high school there just for 1 year out of my time, and a very progressive school, which was wonderful.
Yes.
I had a great experience my time there. So much has happened between then and now. I want to ask you about Miss USA, because I believe it was after you graduated from college, or maybe during college.
While I was in college.
Yeah. So tell us about how did that all begin, and what that experiences was like? And I'm sure I'll have more questions once you start talking about it.
I mean, I'm not sure if you remember, but I was a very serious swimmer all through high school, and I was a horseback rider. And so my whole focus in life had, I ended up going to a different high school. The same thing. I think we both were there for a year, because I was gone midway through the next year, went to a very athletic high school. But I was a very serious swimmer. I was semi-pro in horseback riding. I was a junior Olympian multiple times in swimming, had state records, national records, all this stuff. Thought swimming was my path in life to greatness. My parents, who are far smarter than me, encouraged me to go to a school that didn't offer me a swim scholarship, because they wanted me, because my dad's own experiences of having to have gone to Michigan State on scholarship. He wanted me to go and kind of have the freedom to pursue whatever if I changed my mind, which clearly he must have been able to see the future. And we all kind of had this really good gut feeling about it. But went to college through a series of unexpected events, had to retire from swimming far earlier than I planned. And keep in mind, I thought I was going to be in Beijing. I had grown up, swimming at the same pools and travel teams as Phelps. Like, I knew what my life was going to be. And then in what felt like an instant, I was no longer grounded in the soul thing I had identified myself as. I wasn't a person. People would say, what are you doing here at Miami? I'm a swimmer. What are you looking forward to doing with your future? I'm a swimmer. So to kind of have my identity stripped away was a harsh and interesting experience. It pushed me beyond my limits, but what ended up happening as I came to terms with it, I was slowly approaching my 20th birthday and had a bit of a freak out, and told everybody that basically I had done so much with my life in my teens. There was no way I was going to be able to top it. So I basically then proceeded to write out a list of all the crazy, insane things I had always wanted to do if I hadn't been a swimmer. So, it was things like I'd always wanted to see if I was a runner, and I figured if Diddy could run a marathon, I could too. So I put that on the list, ended up running it. People asked me what was the next one. My best friend asked me at the time. My mom asked me. My dad was kind of like, what in the world is going on? And I said, I've always wanted to be pretty, like my mom. My mom had been a couture fit model. And to me, I had also always wanted to do a pageant. So weirdly, rather than doing a sorority pageant, I decided I watch Miss USA and Miss Universe with my mom every year. I want to do that. And very, long story short, I got an incredible team around me, and they helped kind of Princess Diary me to what I became on stage. But yeah, pageantry came into my life because another thing walked out, and I decided to stop putting limits on myself. And somehow it took me to Miss USA.
Wow. Was it an injury or something that happened with the swimming where you weren't able to keep doing it?
It was both it was the perfect storm of both an injury and a coach that did not like me. And so her kind of indifference towards me mixed with what felt like a long road of rehab ahead of me led to kind of this decision of, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to try to stick this out, hope that you can catch her eye when all of this is said and done? Or do you want to walk away? And I think in a knee-jerk moment, I thought, I'm going to be a real boy. Like, I was so excited to be normal. And then immediately had buyer's remorse, like the next day when my alarm went off at 5 a.m. and I didn't have to be somewhere. And, I eternally am grateful to my then roommate, now best friend, basically sister, for being patient with me through that process. Cause it really was a grieving process of saying goodbye to a very big part of my life. And the fact that this person who was basically a stranger a few weeks before at orientation was now tasked with keeping my parents' child calm and, and everything else, just God bless her for, I could go on for days about how I'm convinced that we were, brought together for a reason and for a purpose. But I am just forever grateful for all the people and the things that were present in my life at that time while I was trying to figure all that out.
Yeah. Yeah. Losing an identity is not an easy thing.
Yes.
I think a big part of the loss is the dream of what you may have created your whole life to be. It was like you had it all figured out.
Exactly. And that's the funny thing. People would say to me, okay, so what do you want to be when you grow up? And I would say, well, see, I'm going to win the Olympics, and then that's going to allow me to do this and do that and do this and do that and do this. I'm going to start a charity to teach Black kids how to swim in, underprivileged neighborhoods. I'm going to be on the cover of Vogue. I'm going to get to host SNL. I'm going to do all this stuff because I'm going to be the first Black girl to ever win a gold medal. Or no, I used to say to break Mark Spitz's records at the Olympics. And I'm going to get to do all this stuff. And it was like everything was tied to that one thing. And so when that was gone, it was kind of like, then I'm not going to be successful. I'm not going to do any of this stuff. I'm never going to get to, do whatever because I haven't. Now I'm not the main linchpin to all of this success is now gone.
Yeah. Yeah. So I imagine there was that grieving period. And then at some point you started having new dreams, new ambitions, new goals. And so the pageant started. I would love to hear what were some of the challenges or adversity or things that came up as you were beginning to do pageants and working your way up to participating in Miss USA.
Yeah. I think the hardest thing in all of this, and it sounds horrible to use the comparison of, it reminded me a lot of horseback riding. So I had a coach that would say sometimes before you went in the ring, it's like, listen, you're already at a disadvantage because this particular job, I did hunters, I didn't do jumpers. So jumpers is like the speed and just don't knock anything over. And hunters is kind of like the beauty of the horse and the beauty of the rider and the accuracy of how you jump. And she would say, listen, you're probably not going to do well in this round because this judge doesn't like, palominos or whatever crazy standard there was. And it felt like that a lot when I entered into pageantry, because people always say, oh, well, how many did you do? And I always have to remind people, I only have done one pageant in my life. And I won that one pageant and then went to this next level of thing that doesn't even count as pageantry. It is basically, you know, a nationally televised, specially selected, you know, thing. And so I think the craziest part of the adversity to me was, and it came after winning Miss DC, was dealing with this idea that strangers that have never met you, but who are lifelong fans of this thing, feel that they have a right to comment on the perceived intelligence or work ethic or all this stuff of a young woman based solely off of one picture. And that they can, you know, it's like the idea of internet trolls is lost on me. You know, when you swim, the best person wins. If you won, you won. They can be mad about it, but nobody then proceeds to make a message board called MacKenzie Green didn't deserve to win. You know, it's like, well, no, I got beat. She got to the finish line before me. But horseback riding was one of those things where, sure, you sat on the side of the ring and thought, like, the only reason she won is because they liked, you know, the way her boots were shiny, or they like her horse. And it felt a little bit of that kind of cattiness where you know, I mean, I remember winning and my sorority sisters being so excited to see pictures. And one of them sends me, is like, did you see this? Sends me a text message. And it was like a web page somebody had created within 6 hours of me winning called MacKenzie Green is the worst Miss DC ever. And it was so baffling to me that I was like, wait, what? Like, why do you even care? Like, sure, I turn on the TV once a year when this thing is on, but I didn't know there were people just like sitting around waiting for winners to come in and then proceeding to pull like an early 2000 Perez Hilton and like circle where they thought your cellulite was. And like, it was just, it blew my, it was the strangest thing I had ever witnessed in my life, that it was like, oh, what? Like, I am a commodity that people think I don't have a feeling towards any of this. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It's inherently vulnerable putting ourselves in the public eye like that. Leadership positions, anything. It's like we, in a way, are putting ourselves out there, and people can project onto us. They can, you know,
exactly
whatever's going on. And I mean, I do like to always say that, like, it says a lot more about that person than you.
Exactly. And that's what I had to come to the realization of, because I think, like anybody who's never experienced that, I immediately internalized it, and I would think like, well, I must not have done this, or I must have done that, or maybe they're right. And then it had to hit me of, what am I doing? I don't know that this is, you know, and I jokingly tell people now, I say, listen, that experience taught me I have a mental hierarchy of whose opinion matters at all times. First is Jesus, then my parents are tied for two. After that come like my grandparents. And it's like pretty much like once I go through that list of 10 people, if you're not on that list, then I mean, tough noogies. Like,
yeah. And also I imagine some real feelings probably came up around that too.
Definitely.
How did you navigate that?
I will say I did not navigate it well at first. And I think that's because a lot of stuff kind of were swirling around that. I had lost my uncle to terminal cancer a week after I won. I had, you know, people that were part of the organization, not my kind of team of coaches and family, but people who were part of the organization that would call and say disparaging things about me. So I definitely am the first to say I did not immediately handle it well, but I think adversity is an incredible teacher. And out of that came a much stronger grounding in my own faith, my own understanding of, you know, mindfulness, which is a constant practice every day, and just figuring out how to check in with myself, how to find new benchmarks that weren't tied to a particular accomplishment that was out of my control. So not getting so caught up in, if I don't win this, I'm a loser. It was more so this thing of finding benchmarks to go like, okay, you did that. All right, you did this. Okay, you did that. Did you do everything that was within your control? Okay, then there you go. And I don't think I would have learned any of that had I not been shaped and molded by that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. What I'm hearing is that it was asking you to look for your own validation and self-worth.
Absolutely.
In yourself and in a deeper level rather than receiving that from the outside.
Absolutely. 1,000,000%.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and what was that moment like when you won the Miss DC? What was that like?
It was so surreal. And it's funny because I've only seen the video of me winning once, and it like gives me heart palpitations and still makes me nervous because I was competing against a woman who had been in pageants before. That was my first runner-up. And I'm a very spiritual person, grew up in a very religious family, but also like had this kind of progressively religious family where, you know, like you prayed, but you also meditated, because my grandmother used to say, you can't just keep talking to God. You need to also be quiet and listen. And so I remember being backstage and kind of being like super chill. And I guess other people had seen things in me that day that made them believe I would win. So people kept saying like, can I get a picture with you? Can I get a picture with you? Can I do this? And I kept being like, and when we got down to the final two, my mom has shown me the video. I'm just talking to the other girl, telling her like how proud I am of her. And looking back, it probably seemed very condescending to her that I was like, you have done an amazing job today. But in my head, I thought, she's going to win. Let me tell her how amazing she is and encourage her so that she can go on from this and know that like we as the group stand with her. And DC obviously is known for being a predominantly Black city. And she was this white woman. And I thought, I want her to know she's got support in me as like the first white woman to win this title in like 20 something years. So like, let me try to be positive and like encouraging to her. And then when they called my name, I thought I don't know where I thought I was going to hear it in the order. So when they said MacKenzie Green, I like looked at her and I was like, good job. And she was like, looks back at me and goes, honey, you won. And then I think I like almost passed out. And because I had been trained so well by my coach that I had reached such a state of like, whatever, I've worried about everything in my control, whatever comes out of this is what comes out of this. And I'm so blessed to have experienced this and to have seen this through to the end, that my mind we had not started worrying about the next step. So I think my brain was kind of like, what is this? Like, it was just so wild to me. And it's just, even now when I go home to visit my parents and the crown and the sash are in a box, I'm like, oh, right, that happened. Like, that's so weird.
So unexpected. I mean, life just brings us these twists and turns. And it sounded like you were non-attached, like you had let it go.
I had totally let it go in that moment because I felt like I had done the best I could do. I'd done everything I had been taught to do by my coach. And I just felt really proud and impressed that I had actually gone all the way with it. Cause I so much of my, the stories we tell ourselves, so much of what I told myself growing up is, you're not pretty, you're not this, you're not that. And so I think the fact that I was willing mentally, and this sounds horrible to say, but I think that I allowed myself to kind of be a little self-indulgent and narcissistic as to stand on the stage and say, like, look at me, just for me. I'm not about to do anything for you. I'm not about to swim laps. I get to be a lady up here, and I get to kind of luxuriate in feeling sexy and beautiful and, good in my own skin. And I think that's what I was so proud of, that this other part just felt like such a a next step that I had not even imagined, that then it became this kind of crazy thing of, and you can look at it however you want, of the universe rewarding me for finally, for once, taking limitations off of myself and saying, see how good things are when you allow yourself to pat yourself on the back. And that's what that night felt like. And so to win felt like this kind of validation of, this wasn't a narcissistic endeavor. This wasn't self-indulgent. It's not bad to kind of feel good in your own skin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's so healing, and something that so many of us, our soul yearns for, is to be seen and celebrated, and just like for being our beautiful selves. And what a gift.
And I think, and everything on that list, like when people say to me, oh, what else is on the list? And, as I'm approaching 30 and people keep saying, oh, did you do everything that was on the list? In reality, this list of things I wanted to do in my 20s, because I thought I had done everything there was worth doing as a teenager, really came from this place of, I look at the things on there now and I realize it was all about me trying to force myself to appreciate myself. So running a marathon came from saying, listen, you've got to stop talking about your you've got to stop talking about your body the way you do. So if you're going to keep talking about how big your legs are, now I'm going to put you mentally, we're going to be in a situation where you're going to look down and appreciate every dimple, every line, every single thing about your legs, because they carried you 26.2 miles. You're going to stop calling yourself not smart because look, you have an MBA, so clearly you're not a dummy, or, stop telling yourself that you're not worthy and beautiful for who you are, because look what happened. And so I now kind of looking back, I look at each of the things I wanted to accomplish, and I realized it was, subconsciously me saying, you're going to start patting yourself on the back more for stuff that you've done, or you're going to end up being in these crazy situations that you can't get out because you already said you wanted to do them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. What a deep insight to see like where some of the motivations were, and just like checking in with yourself and seeing, I imagine after you accomplish those things, like, yes, one, it doesn't give those critical voices as much clout to really say those things anymore. And I imagine just the whole journey that you probably really learned, like that deep self-love, and that there is.
Absolutely.
And I'm curious too, if you have anything to share for any woman out there who is having negative self-body talk, or are having the voices that I'm not smart enough, or I'm not special enough. Like,
definitely.
What would you say to them?
I would say to them, and I know it's so cliche and everybody says it, but if I can work through this, you can work through this. I was somebody who was diagnosed with learning differences and told, the limitations of my own mental capacity by somebody who's not me, and last May, walking across that stage at Columbia was a moment where I said, oh, okay. And so I think if I were talking to someone who had been in that same place where they say, well, I'm not that smart, I would say, first of all, find what you're actually passionate about. Find what you actually enjoy, because you'll be surprised to find the first time you go down a rabbit hole when somebody says you're not that smart. My thing was, somebody had told my parents, kind of lower your expectations. My mom and I got into this huge conversation while I was a child about, I had read Midsummer Night's Dream without her knowing in elementary school and proceeded to talk to her about it. And the look in her face was kind of like, okay, my kid's not dumb. So there's something there, and I would tell that person what I learned from that: find your tribe, and your real tribe, whether they're your friend. I don't care if it's like the barista at Starbucks that every day you don't feel cute, you walk in and they're like, "Yas, queen, you killing it today." be like, thank you, girl. Yes, I am feeling it. Thank you so much, And then I would say the other thing for that negative self-talk is find other things that aren't tied to the superficial moments you tell yourself. So, I'm sure any woman that has told themselves, I'll be so much happier when I lose 10 pounds, don't get hung up on the 10 pounds. Like, can you do 10 real push-ups? If you can't, make that your thing, because you'll be surprised what you have to do to be able to get to that other physical goal will probably at some point lead to those 10 pounds. But you'll feel so much more grounded and badass when you're on the gym floor doing, real push-ups like Demi Moore and G.I. Jane than if all of a sudden this scale arbitrarily says a number. The same thing with intelligence. It's like, don't get hung up on, and this is speaking as somebody who had trouble in school, don't get hung up on the grade. Maybe talk to the teacher, talk to your boss, and find something you truly find purpose in and say, like, I'm going to contribute to this. I just think my advice to any woman standing in the same place I was in, I am in, I'm constantly in every day is, those are the main steps. So the other thing is, like, be mindful, ground yourself in something more than yourself, and ground yourself in what you truly want. Because I think sometimes we will tell ourselves, I'm not smart. Well, do you actually believe that, or have you heard that somewhere? Why don't you take a minute to meditate? Why don't you take a minute, to read a Marianne Williamson book, or to read a Joel Osteen, or to read a Tim Ferriss, or to read, a book on stoicism? Find something else more than you to ground this understanding of, oh, it's not that I think I'm stupid. It's that I let other people's standards of intelligence base to me what smart is, or whatever it is. But that's like the whole foundation, is start with yourself and make sure that it's grounded in something larger than you.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, beautiful. So one thing I want to ask you about, MacKenzie, is your dad. And I know that your dad was part of the Little Rock Nine, one of the first Black men to graduate from high school, that high school, the first, I believe, right?
Yep. He's the first from Central, and I think one of the first after Brown versus Board.
Wow. So how was that on you, that impact on you growing up? What, just having your dad in your life, knowing that as part of his story, what impact did that have on you growing up?
I think it's so wild you asked me this, because we had the 60th anniversary not too long ago, and we did like a panel of the children, and the same thing came up. And I think it has had more of an impact on me now than it did growing up, because growing up, our sense of normal is grounded in what we see around us. So I thought I was totally normal. I thought it was very normal that we went to the White House whenever we wanted to. I thought it was very normal that my dad had a movie made about him. I thought it was super normal. Like, I thought it was totally normal to spend the summer on a movie set. I thought it was totally normal to, have people come up to him and ask for his autograph. I thought it was totally normal to have news crews sometimes show up to things, or my dad's, like, it never occurred to me that he wasn't normal or that anything special had been done. But more than anything, I always say that is a testament to my dad. He very much was dad to me and Ernest Green to the rest of the world, and he didn't bring that home. There was never a sense of, I always had this feeling of, wow, this person has strong belief and expectations in me and what I can achieve, but it was just in me. I never thought, oh, he wants all this for me because he doesn't want me to let down the legacy, and it's the same goes for my mom. It was never like, I was a French couture model and I graduated high school 2 years early, you can do better. No, it was like mom and dad. And for some reason she had really nice clothes in her closet and had these really glamorous photos set in Paris. And for some reason my dad, you know, seemed to always have people coming from USA Today or Jet Magazine to the house. Like that just, it was normal to me in a way. I think now that I've gotten older, I more so feel a responsibility to who he is and what he's done, because I look at people like Valerie Jarrett or even like a Tracy Ellis Ross, like these, or Bernice King, like these children of these notable people, because I feel like in order to keep his legacy going, it is my job to make a name for myself, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I also am sensing that your parents, because of these really amazing kind of these landmark moments in their life, were able to believe in you in a way and be like, yeah, so much is possible.
Exactly.
And just
exactly. And I think that, you know, my mom was a girl from Indiana who graduated early, went to college, was like, get me out of the Midwest, and went to go do grad school in Paris, and, you know, got discovered walking down the Champs-Élysées by Karl Lagerfeld. I mean, she lived a life that I don't think my grandparents or her grandparents or anybody of that lineage could have even imagined. So I'm with you. I think for them, it just, what they experienced made them to believe like miracles can happen when you least expect them. So we just want to be here to foster a belief in her that anything is possible as long as you are in the right mind frame and you have prepared yourself to step into the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And because of all of these different things that you have been able to step into and do, and in learning from your parents along the way, I imagine now and throughout your life, you've had a unique platform to create change from. And I'd love to hear just some of the things that you have done or are doing now, or just like the things you're passionate about, or that you know, stand up to believe in, or things that you love giving back, or I'm curious about that.
For sure. You know, I think first and foremost, I try to pay it forward. So I am constantly, sometimes even in a pushy sense, like offering to mentor any person who comes in my inbox or happens upon me at an event or a speaking engagement or, you know, a school visit or whatever it may be. I've been able to be, you know, the chair on the National Council of Negro Women in the past, working with, you know, collegiate young women, preparing them for kind of the real world and how they can give back. But I think more than anything, I have really found this beauty in, I was a fellow for a program at UCLA Anderson through their business school. And I was a pre-MBA fellow. And within that is something called the Reardon Scholars, which is geared towards, in most cases, first-gen college students from kind of rougher neighborhoods in the LA area. And both the scholars and the fellows program, the fellows raise money through their time in the program for the scholars. And so that became a huge passion for me. But the biggest thing that I love being a part of is I'm now part of the admissions council for the program. And my belief is that I have been privileged and blessed enough to have people take chances on me in moments that have probably changed the course of my life. And so I love being on this admissions committee and reading through these applications and interviewing these really ambitious young people and being able to give them access to this program that could possibly open their eyes up to their own abilities beyond this, and they could become the next great, you know, Ken Chenault or Deborah Lees or whomever. And so that's been something I'm really kind of obsessed with. I'm sure I drive every kid I interview insane because I just truly want to foster and nurture in them a belief that this isn't just a fellowship. This is an opportunity for you to really expand your belief in yourself. And I've just continued to mentor people. I stay involved with the American Cancer Society because of what we went through with my uncle, and my father had prostate cancer some time ago. But I'm always putting my hands in things. I'm part of a group in LA, had the privilege of working with a sex tech startup not too many months ago. So got really involved in both reproductive rights, women's rights. And from that, working with Planned Parenthood. So, my feeling is I want to do more for the next generation, but the thing I'm most passionate about is that I want to break a glass ceiling for Black women in entertainment, for minorities. And I want to be able to do something none of us have done so far, which is sit in the C-suite for a major media company, specifically in film, and be able to greenlight more Black Panthers and give more Lena Wyatt's opportunities and see true representation in an industry that, wasn't always built for all of us.
Mm-hmm. That's inspiring. Do you see your work going in that direction of being in the entertainment or film industry in the back end of that?
I think it does. I have a love of storytelling. I had a grandfather who used to tell the tallest of tales, but he also loved and could sit you down to watch Three Coins in a Fountain, or show you La Dolce Vita, or sit with me and analyze, what did you like about, that movie, or let's go to the drive-thru. And so I think under everything is this love and passion for film. But I think more importantly, I know how much media and entertainment drive culture. And we have the producers and the directors and the writers and those voices, but still it is an industry that is largely run by white men. And I think it's about time that somebody has a seat at the table that can give opportunity to others, because I would love to see a world where there's more LGBTQ representation in Hollywood and, true Native voices and Asian American. And I think it's all going to start with somebody sitting in those big front offices saying yes to more people and not just one group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the people making those decisions, having more power. And that's so much of the young people in the world look to those movies and TV shows, and that's what they aspire to, a lot of them. So having more diversity is really important. Well, I have, let's see, one, maybe two more questions for you, MacKenzie.
All right. I know I ramble, so.
No, it's great. I love everything that you've been sharing. So I want to know, I ask this question quite often with my guests, and I'm curious about, in the past year, if you think about a fear that you've had and what that was and how you approached it or faced it or worked through it, and what that experience was like for you.
Definitely. I think, and this will probably resonate with someone, but I think at times I allow my fear of success to take hold. I know a lot of times people say fear of failure. It's like, what if I try and I fail? I think sometimes I will think to myself, what if you get that thing? Then what do you do? Mm-hmm. And I think that's where that fear sometimes breeds, self-sabotage or constant questioning. But I think that has been my biggest fear. I keep saying mindfulness, but as somebody who, again, like my grandmother used to always say, I do a lot of begging to God sometimes and praying, and I'm starting to learn to be quiet and listen to what my heart is trying to tell me, what kind of the greater power is saying to me, rather than getting so into this, oh my God, well, what if this happens? Well, what if I get it and that happens? Of just learning to be quiet and sit in that feeling of, all right, this is unfamiliar and this is uncomfortable, but you're here and you're fine.
Yeah. Quieting those voices.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think a very common mind habit that can happen for a lot of people is going down the what if train around like all the worst possible things that could happen. And a practice I've been doing actually is writing my journal, what if, and then whatever the best possible outcome could be. So it's like,
I like that.
And just doing a stream of consciousness. What if I take this step that I'm scared of and it actually turns out amazing? What if I end up inspiring someone that I had no idea I would even inspire? And I think also what you're speaking to is sometimes the success can be the fear too. And we think we want it so badly. And then it's like, oh, actually there can be a part of us holding it off at arm's distance, because what if we actually get it? What does that mean?
Exactly. It's crazy, and it's, but I'm grateful that I can recognize that fear when it's coming, and I can kind of feel it in the air like rain. It's, and then I can start to prepare myself so that I'm not just totally caught off guard by my own, self-sabotage.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's important, staying connected to the feelings and the feelings of what we want to create and want to have, and releasing our attachments to exactly how that needs to look when it happens, but staying connected to like the feeling of like, yeah, I want this thing and I want it to be joyful in the process. I don't want it to be like this big, scary, life-changing thing that can just be like hitting an upper limit where it's just too much. But finding that, like the feeling of the joy, the feeling of our heart throughout the process.
Absolutely. No, you articulated that better than I ever could.
Yeah. Well, last question. I'd love to just know what you're excited about in your life right now. If you want to share anything about just what you have been working on, what your life is, what work you're doing, what you're devoted to right now, anything like that.
Definitely. I think I'm most excited about turning 30 in July, which sounds strange, but I have been so excited about turning 30 since I turned 13. So I don't know why, for some reason to me, it sounds like this exciting space in adulthood, and, that I just am so excited for. Another superficial thing is I have a dog, and we're going to be going on our 1-year rescue anniversary in June. So I just look forward to feeling my heart expand more. I think, when it comes to work, I work at NBC Universo Telemundo Deporte. So I'm looking forward to the World Cup once that's over and we can get that out of the way. But I think what I'm just most excited for and most looking forward to coming up in the future is just giving myself space to explore other things that I'm passionate about, and to really just, enjoy another decade of taking the limits off, but with this knowledge that I gained during that time of actively trying to pursue things, and instead stepping into a new decade of trusting that spirit will guide me, while also, having a better head on my shoulders to recognize great blessings.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Yes. And do you have any last closing words? Any just blessings or shares to the women that are listening?
Definitely. I think so much of the new headspace that I stepped into that led to the pageant and business school and all this other stuff came from great loss that I experienced. And I would love for anyone listening out there to know that, you know, and again, I have to quote my good old Southern Baptist grandmother, you know, you don't get a testimony without a test. And so when you are in those storms, when it feels like everything around you is falling apart or like it's too much to handle, know that, you know, whatever you believe in wouldn't give you more than you could handle. And to almost look at it in a way of, wow, you know, this is a heck of a storm, but when this is over, I mean, it's going to be one hell of a rainbow that comes out of this, you know, and so that is my encouragement. And believe me, I have experienced so much that I thought was unbearable, but I look back now and, you know, and like the hymn says, you know, my soul looks back and wonders how I got over it. You know, I'm so grateful for every heartbreak, pitfall, loss, you know, death, disappointment, all of it. I'm so grateful for all of it because it was all an incredible teacher. And I would not trade a second of it if it meant that I couldn't be in this moment where I am, who I am without it.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm just going to invite us to close our eyes again and just be into that space with our breath and to just breathe that in. Seeing all the challenges that might come our way as these profound catalysts and opportunities for our transformation. Just envisioning that rainbow that comes after the storm. So just taking a deep breath into the heart, letting it go. I'll just bring my hands to my heart and bow with such gratitude. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today, MacKenzie. And thank you to everyone listening for showing up, for doing your work and being open to be that catalyst of change. So namaste.
Namaste. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to our show today. We would love to hear what you think. Take a moment to hop on over to iTunes and leave us a review. We'd be so grateful to receive it. Until next time, namaste.